Hi there, and welcome to another episode of the Gentle Business Revolution podcast, the show where we talk about disrupting the current marketing paradigm and changing it to a gentler approach, one that's based on empathy and kindness. I'm Sarah Croce. I'm the host on this show, and you know that you're in the right place if you are a heart-centered entrepreneur or change maker who's looking for a better way to market your business. Or you might also be a marketing impact pioneer. So someone who's working in an organization and you just know that there has to be a better way to connect with your audience. So without further ado, here's today's conversation on the show. Hi, Jonathan. How are you? So good to meet you finally and speak to you.
Hi, Sarah. Super pleased to be with you today and delight to have a fresh windows to exchange today.
Yeah, it's so interesting because we were just talking before we started recording that we're both in Switzerland, and yet we didn't know that, or you didn't know that I was based here. We're living in such a global world that we can talk to each other and not know that we practically live in cities next to each other. So good to meet you virtually, and one day we'll meet in person as well.
Definitely. Let's secure that, and then we are close, hopefully, to be able to meet in person and reactivate those moments, being in the same room, sharing a drink, sharing a meal.
I know it feels foreign right now. It feels like hard to imagine, but we'll get back to that, I'm sure. So I wanted to invite you to really talk about the future of business. I had recorded an episode at the end of 2020, kind of talking about my ideas and trends and tendencies of where, the future of business is going. And as the head of B Corp Switzerland, I'm sure you have some thoughts on where business is heading. So I'd love to get into that. But maybe before we get started, I have talked about B Corp on this podcast before. I've actually talked to Sophie Conchon in episode 38. And so we discussed that here, and I mentioned it a couple of times so my listeners know. But just in case there's any new listeners, could you just give us an update on what B Corp is and what it stands for?
Yeah, let's perhaps frame that. Behind the B Corp movement, there is B Labs, global NGOs that is promoting, certifying companies, and the certified company names is B Corporation. So right. The B Corp is a name given to the company that are certified. Right. Perhaps. Think about the theory of change that B Lab developed to redefine success in business, which bring this. I love this idea of presenting B Lab with the bird picture. Mm-hmm. So B Lab bring in one wing the impact management, credible mm-hmm. international impact framework to measure what matters, to measure how company stand in the sustainability journey. And in the other wing, we have the stakeholder governance. So we require company to adapt their bylaw to really set their commitment at the highest level of their governance and legal entities, which when you bring both together, you have a very credible, authentic instrument to redefine also how the company operates in the market. And so this is the B Corp bird is really, this image of a bird that is authentic, but also can address impactful transformation by not driving sustainability as a project or as a topic, but really to sustainability in their strategies and in their operation fully. And so that's why we love this idea of having strong metrics and impact measurement that help them to progress over the time, but also have this credible commitment by, in our highest governance body by changing the bylaw. So that means this is the B Corp, I would say, birds and B Corp principle, and broadly B Lab theory of change is really activating a movement and really like this idea of sharing that being a certified B Corp is just the starting point. Because when you get certified, you join the movement of 4,000 B Corp all around the world, representing 150 sectors of industry. And then you can start also joining collective action. So the B Corp certification, credible, but is a milestone, and then that gives this capacity of, joining forces with thousands of companies in collective action. And just to give a word about collective action, like the net zero commitment. So now we have more than 1,000 companies in the world and 900 B Corp companies that are certified that have joined this commitment of being net zero by 2030. So net zero carbon emission by 2030. It's currently the largest business network in the world that takes such commitment 20 years before the Paris Agreement. And so just, sharing about the B Corp certification and collective action and basically supporting the broader theory of change of, challenging the shareholder primacy. So concretely, we are bringing and we are catalyzing what could be the stakeholder capitalism.
I love that. I love the idea of the bird. I had never heard anyone describe it like that. The other thing I think that you highlighted is the movement part. And in my mind, that really is what it makes it different from some other kind of label. Like we're used as consumers to see these labels, right? And so in a way, yes, the certification, it gives you then that label, but it doesn't end there. Like you say, it's just the beginning, because the movement is actually the thing that makes this interesting. It's not just, here's your stamp and off you go. Tell us more about the certification, because it's quite complex, the certification. And my question would also be like, what's the follow-up? Because things change so rapidly. So, okay, you're a certified B Corp now, but what happens, after that, 2 years from now? Is there some kind of control or like, how is that organized?
Like any management system and certification, we've designed a recertification every 3 years. So company will pass again in the full review of their impact management and commitment on a 3-year base model, which allow to keep the knowledge on where they stand in those commitments, but also allow them to really improve during this period of time. And behind the certification, there is this fantastic framework that has been developed and standards and tools, the B impact assessment, that covered 5 impact areas from governance, workers, community, environment, and customer, which basically bring operation and practice, measurement, and impact business model performance. And then when you bring those together, you have a very powerful framework to conduct change and also help those companies to improve over the time. And so, behind the certification, there is a very strong framework, 250 in average criteria. And there is also a score. So what is the novelty here is that CFO and accountant get a number for the triple bottom line. So this framework also integrates the economic dimension in the review. And so you get a number. You need to reach a minimum score of 80 points on 200. And this score will, help also the public audience to understand where the company stands in the journey. And then that's helpful to drive change, but also to position the company and connect the company in this infrastructure market that we are willing to build. So, this certification itself is very important. This is a key pillar. But the movement that really shape and give substance to this infrastructure market that might become the future infrastructure market, that become, the one that is the reference and not, we have not designed a kind of an alternative infrastructure market. We are just showing that we can set up an infrastructure market that meets the triple bottom line, that also build trust with the various stakeholders. And I mean, here, this is the power of the movement, is connect not only the business, but also other stakeholders, policy makers, like how we connect this driving force of credible players that are certified to be recognized in public procurement, for example, or for creating new incentive. Because once you have the economic operator that is structured around the triple bottom line, with standardized performance measurement, with a credible process, then you can connect the infrastructure market to it, which means policymakers, but also investors and so. And then for sure consumer. And you mentioned one thing about the product certification, like other label and so. And then there is many product certification. We are basically moving from this view of the past 30 years of good product to good company to keep.
Right.
And we are giving a certification for good company, and that's much more complex. But also, this is basically the only way to bring the system change that we seek, building up this equitable, inclusive, and regenerative economy.
Yeah, and like you said, it's no longer just one product that might get that label, and then the company's like, but look at this product, we're good, we have this label. No, it has to apply to all 5 pillars, like you mentioned before, the internally, the collaborators, the customers. Remind me, what are the 5?
But there is the community with all elements around diversity, but also supply chain management. No, it's a very holistic framework. And then currently, it's not easy to get the certification.
It's not. And that's, I guess, where my follow-up question is like, saying that it's not easy, how is that actually helping to make it mainstream? In other words, it's like, if we want this to be the main business model and not just some nice to have, I agree that it shouldn't be easy, but at the same time, like, the challenge, I guess, is like, how do we make it so appealing that everybody wants to be there?
Yeah, I mean, in I would say in transformative process, and to answer the question or to discuss about it, think about the context. Where our companies operate now and today in those challenging times. And with the pressure of the various stakeholder, consumer, citizen, we need to have a credible, engaging process. And I guess that's what we bring, that allow to definitely and in a long-term answers to social and environmental emergencies. So if we look at the context, what we've seen for the past 20 years is a need of trust. And for that, trust can't be earned easily.
No.
So that's a basic answer that yes, and it's hard. It's request important change, but in the same end, we can't make it too easy. Because the challenges are so big and the role of business is so important, because government and NGO will not achieve the change we seek in regards to climate, to racial justice, social justice, and climate justice, for example. So this is in the end of businesses, and then I mean, funny it is, even if the process is hard, businesses are agile and adaptive, and they can make it. So I guess the answer is there. There is no credibility without difficulties.
In a way, it's like we've been wanting it easy and it didn't get us anywhere. So the answer is, well, easy didn't work. So, let's try it in a different way. And I think I heard you talk in another interview or somewhere where you said that there was actually already data, after this pandemic that showed that B Corps or other companies who are applying those kind of things, they are doing much better. Like, they haven't suffered in the same way that a company who's profit only has suffered. So there's already data that shows that this is the only way forward in this, this is not the last pandemic. This is not that last hardship. And so in a way, that is a sales point for businesses. If you want to survive, if you want to be sustainable, this is the only way going forward.
And that's, I really love this conversation and an element, because we are addressing the resilient part of running a business. And we've seen during the pandemic, and we've seen even pre or even in 2008 with the financial crisis, that B Corp have better reacted and passed through those crises for two main reasons. First, they've built loyalty inside their company, trust. So teams are engaged to support during those times. And this is very key, working with the human capital and having them engaged and loyal and committed when it's more than ever needed. And the other element is, shifting from building a supply chain and relationship to building a value chain that are partners. And so that change also the relationship and the reaction when, the exchange are challenged and blocked. And so we've seen those two elements as a resilient element, very strong resilient element on how the B Corp have reacted to it in general. And broadly, we are seeing B Corp getting more traction and attractiveness by investors, for example. We've raised more or less in the past 3 or 4 years, 3 billion of capital for certified B Corp.
Wow.
We are seeing also in the UK and in Switzerland, sales growth since 2016 that increased over the time for the B Corp. So they are not operating better than traditional company, but they are increasing their position and probably offering kind of alternative to other mainstream business model and companies. So quite interesting to share that, because I guess not a lot of organizations in the world have data to back such statements by the book and research. We all know that, sustainable business are more resilient business. We are bringing the data. We are bringing the case study, to make it concrete and tangible.
Yeah, I guess that's what people want. They want, they don't want to be sold the intangible things. It's like, sustainability is good for the planet. They're like, but show me how that is going to help my business. And you're like, boom, here's the data. And in a way, in a kind of dark way, I guess the pandemic has helped us with that. I think in many ways, the pandemic has, shown a light on so many things that weren't working for a long time, but it has now really just, kind of stopped and showed us all these systems that are crumbling. And so it's really like we're in this system struggle where some people are still like, the old system, that's the only way, capitalism, pure capitalism. And then there's the new systems, or the people who see that there's a need for new systems. It's almost like the consciousness of people in general has risen. And so I think you're right. That's why people want to invest in companies who have, good values. That's why they want to work for companies that show these kind of values. So it's, it's this power struggle between the level of consciousness of people and the old kind of, this is how we've always done it ways, right?
Yeah. And, in every crisis, there is opportunity.
Yeah.
And if the opportunity for sustainability, stakeholder capitalism, reshaping and envisioning what could be a new economy, I guess, what we have seen here in Switzerland, an increasing number of requests coming to our desk since April 2020, more than 300%.
Wow.
In the middle of the pandemic. So just give us some reality check on what's happening. Now, being honest on that, if we want to bring this natural positive and just economy for all, we have this momentum now. So I guess there is really two key things. There is the build back better. So it's an opportunity to build back better, definitely. So engaging also various stakeholder governments, policymaker in supporting this transformation. And the second one is really allowing businesses to transform progressively, but with kind of a milestones strategies in regards to this historical opportunity around the Agenda 2030. So we have a common agenda. We have 10 years.
Yeah.
What the science tells us is that we have 10 years, 12 years perhaps. So 2030. And businesses need incentive, need signal, and need an agenda to design a strategy. And so we are just here to support, to inspire, to enable those businesses to join in. And there is the B Corp, and there is movement, there is other network of engaged businesses that are definitely contributing in that. So the idea, aside of the B Corp certification and movement, is also providing the right tools to help, a very large number of companies to start the journey. And I guess, with those 100,000 organizations that are using our free and confidential tool, the B Impact Assessment or the SDG Action Manager, is also a very good signal on, how companies start to integrate holistic approach around sustainability to really drive their operation, design new business model to contribute to the greater interest, to the common good.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a momentum for defining this new license to operate. And that's, I guess, definitely an historical moment, an opportunity that we are living on.
Yeah. We talked a lot about businesses and companies, right? Because that's what the B Corp is for. However, we all know that businesses and companies are made of people. So how do we have the certification for the business, but we need to train basically those people in those kind of different skills, and often that is the CEO of a company that needs to have that kind of different vision for his business, the management team in general. But so what are some of the qualities, if you had to hire a CEO today for a company, what kind of qualities would this leader have to have compared to 10, 15 years ago?
Well, the easy shot for me is really the courage. Courage.
It takes courage to be different and
to be different, to drive and build this, empowering, authentic, and credible leadership. So you need courage. You need to do differently things than before. And then another one, which is for me more than important, it's really around increasing the capacity of system thinking of leaders. So to really make them allow them to deal with complexity, this system thinking approach to connect dots, to integrate broad and various type of stakeholders or topics in the way they design their business model and they operate or they build innovation. And I guess, that would be the two key values or skills that is needed for catalyzing change.
So courage and systems thinking. And I guess courage to me is always easier when you are surrounded by other courageous people, right? And so that's what the B Corp movement is also for. It's like, hey, we can do this and you're not alone to think differently. Where if you're like in this old company and you're the only one thinking differently, it's very hard to be courageous. So I think that's why we need movements to say, look, let's do this differently. In my case, I talk about marketing differently, right? And it's like, marketing has been done the same way for 20 years, but yet the consciousness of people has changed and we don't want to be marketed to in the same pushy, aggressive way anymore either. But yet everybody does it and it's just like, it's expected. So it's like different and takes courage to be different. In terms of the systems thinking, I guess what you're saying here is like, don't just think in a bubble. Like it's not just your company and your customers. It's like, look at who else is involved and how the planet is involved and the supply chain and where does your product come from and all of these things.
And
Is that what you're thinking?
and basically when we talk about inclusive model,
Yeah.
there is many ways to design the group of stakeholders that you will involve in your operation, or you design a business model being inclusive and participative to open opportunity to to everyone in our society, or not just thinking, okay, now we have to protect the environment to limit it and reduce our carbon emission.
Right.
It's even too late. We need to have those leaders thinking about how to regenerate
Right.
the natural capital. So when I really think about those skills that are needed, it's definitely leads to a lot of courage to stand up for important change, and fortunately, as you said, now technologies, information are flying quickly. That open also to a lot of opportunity to build communities, that surround the companies, because
Right.
this is the key element now. It's really to build the communities around the company, and there is only inclusive, regenerative approach, equitable approach that will allow that now and in the future, but that even more now because of the pandemic. And we've seen, all of those companies that, 3 days after the lockdown announced, they just fire half of their team members.
Yeah.
And this is not driven by courage or analytics or dialogues, and that just reflect on, how we can change the economic operator.
Right. The last thing I want to touch on is the 17 Sustainable Development Goals by the United Nations. So oftentimes when I talk to my entrepreneurs, so those are the main listeners of this podcast, so they're like small businesses, they feel overwhelmed with the goals of these 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So what would you say to small business owners, or even just your everyday person? How can we as individuals basically make a difference and somehow achieve one of those goals?
Let me jump on something that we've built up and set up here in Switzerland with the Swiss Triple Impact program. So we've designed a program that allow every businesses, but with a focus on SMEs, creating a pathway to help them to prioritize their work on specific SDGs, not all of them, not the 17, but on the one that are relevant and where they have capacity or capacity to contribute. And then this is not that complicated. It's a process, and there is not just a request to contribute or to join effort. There is a lot of opportunity behind that. So we know that there is those 12 trillion of investment opportunity related to the 17 SDG goals, creation of 400 million of jobs to achieve the 17 SDG goals. So it's a question of mindset. This is not something to comply and that is painful. If you change the mindset that there is opportunity to do better, to build a better business, and to join a more broad agenda, I guess you already changed the process of how those entrepreneurs can, how they can react on that. And then, I really love this idea of the little step approach. Yes, like in any situation of your life, like if you do sport and then tomorrow I say, okay, I'm going to do triathlon, and you don't run at least once a week, you may have set kind of goals that are too far and not achievable, and the process will be that I've not achieved that, but you wasn't ready. So let's build a kind of a plan with achievable steps, and to increase over the time the capacity that you can, and that's something in my relationship with many entrepreneurs and companies, that yes, with this big flagship of the 17 SDG goals, they say, okay, this is the big plan, but I'm a little, contributor. No, there is pathway channel for everyone to contribute. And that's basically why we we set this Swiss Triple Impact Pathway program, which is a first step in a journey to become a B Corp, for example, or is a first step to make you more confident to also engage some of your stakeholders, your team members, starting building a common grammar on the role of businesses to solve social and environmental issue. And I mean, sometimes we forgot the very key and important part of taking the time to build the right narrative that is adapt to my context, to my capacity to move forward. And that's why at B Lab, we've designed this pioneer community, B Corp. That's, yes, it's really a process and it's really demanding, but it's also a lot of really rewarding. But yeah, in between creating those programs that allow, smaller steps, but also with this movement spirit, peer network element that allow, to catalyzing the change.
I love that. Yeah, because I wasn't aware of that other program, and I just found it when I researched for our interview, and I signed up for the initial kind of workshop.
Introduction workshop, yeah.
Because I was one of those entrepreneurs who was like, well, I don't really fit into the B Corp. My company is not big enough, and so I was like, well, what's available for me? So I'm really pleased to hear that is available, and that B Corp thinks about those things, that it is a mindset thing. Of course, like you say, you need to break things down into little steps, and that seems to be a very good first step. And clearly those 17 goals have been defined for, they're very simplified. They have to be available for governments, for big corporations, and so you need to make them yours by saying, well, how can I apply this to my tiny business? And like you said, it's just a mindset thing.
So, and B Corp is not designed for only large companies. We have even solo entrepreneurs that are get certified. Yeah, they have a lot of impact, and they probably are more designed as a kind of social business at the early stage. So they get the rewards for that, for the business model or the impact that are connected to the impact business model. But this is not just for large. What we've seen is that, if you SDG might bring too much complexity for SMEs, but this is also a question of awareness.
Yeah.
And if we think about, now the increased communication from government supporting SDG framework, and so I guess the signals start to come from different parts and being more clear. But that's what I believe, is that you start to learn and understand when you're starting to practice. Huh?
Yeah.
So when you're practicing, that's where you start integrating. I'm super proud of being designing this SWIP program, Swiss Triple Impact, because we are now getting a lot of feedback from small SMEs in various sectors of the industry, and they're super proud because they feel that, okay, I'm contributing to the bigger picture, and I'm doing it not to be rewarded, but to practice, to have also something to say.
Right.
When those entrepreneurs on the Sunday lunch, they talk to their child on, okay, but what are you doing at your level? The planet is burning. And so we've seen very, very interesting feedback and testimonial from, I would say, not ready sustainable player to become fantastic ambassador once they get into practice. So my recommendation is okay, talk less, practice more, and as any company do, learning by doing.
Yeah, and join the movement. Again, I think the power is also in having others there and having that conversation. So
we have this fantastic value in the B Corp movement around the declaration of interdependence. And when you think about interdependence in regards to the natural capital, in regards to the human capital, this is a very strong principle. but that remain that, yeah, business will change the world, and everyone has a role to play in that. And the question is, do I am acting for further generation? And basically, that's helped to strengthen this movement principle and an engagement with really amazing women and men. And I'm feeling so lucky being in touch with such entrepreneur companies, people, because they are the voice of the movement. We are just an enabler.
Right. We need to wrap this up, Jonathan, because I know you have to jump on another call, but this has been great, and maybe we'll do a round 2. So I so appreciate your time. Please tell people where you want them to go, where they can find out more about B Lab and B Corp.
Yeah, so go on www.blab-switzerland.ch. It's the focus in Switzerland. You can reach our various program activities. You can even commit to our B Corp Climate Collective that is open to any business to join climate action with specific action group. And there is the B Leader training that we are delivering. We are also collaborating with now 9 universities in Switzerland where we deliver and supporting educational program. There is the link on the website for our tools. And I would say, yeah, basically, people say, "Oh, do I start to think about becoming a B Corp?" I say, go on the beimpactassessment.net website, make a profile, go over the various impact area, and then you have a flavor of what are the practices and metrics to drive a business as a force for good. That's the best starting point.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you, Sarah, and happy to join the second round very soon.
Thank you. Thanks so much for watching until the very end. If you haven't subscribed yet, click on that subscribe button so that you're informed whenever I release a new episode here on the YouTube channel. Also, if you're new here and you don't have your one-page marketing plan yet, make sure you subscribe at sarahzinacroce.com/one-page, the number 1, and then page to download your one-page marketing plan that takes you through this journey of a gentler approach to marketing. So it comes with an email series that takes you through the 7 Ps and really offers some deep reflections about these different kind of Ps, the gentler way to market. So again, sarahzinacroce.com/one-page. Thanks so much and see you next time.